And
And
welcome to a very interesting episode of the This Week in Worcester podcast. I am Tom Marino, editor of This Week in Worcester. This is my friend, colleague, and partner in the gab, Mr. John Edward Keogh. He is the executive producer of Manager Media, president of Hollywood Film Group, and also a contributor to This Week in Worcester.
that's me. What's up, Tommy?
What a depressing, disgraceful, heartbreaking, really, week in Worcester.
It's tough stuff, man. Tough stuff. Can't always be, releasing movies and having them in theaters. Sometimes it's got to be digging out from underneath some of the toughest stuff that we've gotten. Although this is not like we started this the other day. Between you and me, we've been working this story for years and years and years. So it's not like we didn't know this was possible. We just maybe were hopeful that it wasn't as bad as we thought it was, right? I mean, we were hoping. So
we were.
Yeah.
We were. I mean, so I don't know. I've heard about some of the, I know some of the cases that are in the report. But there was nothing that shocked me. I think we've all heard that before, right?
Yeah.
Heard versions of that stuff before. I do. I guess I understand. The more I think about it, I understand kind of the police union pushback on this a little bit, in the sense that, they're taking it very personally, that it's a statement on all cops. It's not what the report actually says if you read the thing. And I get it. Like, the union leaders are reading this report, and by the time they get to the point, get through the description of the cases that they've become aware of. And if you haven't seen the report, everything's anonymized by design, because the point isn't to get the prosecutions. The point is to understand what's going on. And so you talk to people, you give them anonymity, when they talk to you, and you get more information. It's not it's not intended to be at a beyond reasonable doubt standard. It's there to, the report I'm sure very carefully was written that they have plausible reason to believe, I believe was the phrasing they used, that these things are happening.
But explain that, Tom. Why aren't indictments being issued? Like, dig into that.
Sure. So the investigation is although the Massachusetts U.S. Attorney's Office supported, these investigations are run by the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, and it's a civil investigation. It is not. They can refer, should they believe that they found criminal activity, they can refer that to DOJ Maine, the criminal division. But again, those people work on a much different evidence standard, right? Because now you're trying to take somebody's freedom away, and then you get into beyond reasonable doubt.
Right.
So these were designed when this was in the crime bill in 1994. They did the first investigation in 96, and they're designed though to uncover what's going on, as but the core focus here is the systemic issues. So if I had to summarize the report in 10 seconds for somebody, I would say they said, here's a bunch of horrible things that we have plausible reason to believe or that are going on, or we gathered credible information that these are credible accusations. That's as far as they take it, because they're not there to adjudicate those claims. They're saying, we looked at evidence, we looked at police reports. There's a credible allegation based on all the evidence we have available to us. So the report says, get off the 10-second thing. The report says, here's all the horrible things that we believe are credibly going on. We credibly believe are going on. The reason why you don't know about them, and this is the important point, the reason why you aren't able to detect them or you don't know about these things going on is because your method of supervising and the structures that enable actual supervising are broken beyond belief. And then if there's even if a complaint comes forward, your internal investigations department finds every excuse to stop investigating rather than seeking out all the evidence to try and determine, uh, and the reason for that is, even if, like, in one of the cases that they explained, they said that the complainant, the alleged, I guess, victim, uh, filed a complaint with Internal Affairs or the BOPS division, and that does internal investigation, and then decided not to participate in that investigation. That's common, especially in cases of sexual assault or sex crimes. They're underreported, and that pattern of filed a complaint and decided not to participate, not unique. However, what the report points out is that they were aware of other witnesses, people that this person who filed a complaint talked to. There was other things that they could have done, but because there was no longer a complainant, a cooperating complainant, they just closed the case. And what that tells us is they're interested in adjudicating complaints and not determining if they have scumbags within their ranks. Right? They just find ways to get, okay, well, this person, the complainant went away, and we could look at all this other stuff, but I mean, we don't really have a complaint now, so they're treating it like a criminal case, when the purpose should be to determine if this person, that's being the claim is against, is a scumbag or not, and should they be on the. So that's generally what they said. These are the things we believe are happening. The reason why you don't know is because your supervising system and the structures that enable it are wholly broken. And even if you get a complaint, they're not adequately investigated, which I didn't really, I had no sniff at the supervisor stuff. I've read enough, internal investigations reports to tell you that they're a joke. They're an absolute joke. It's comical.
In many cases, what we're talking about is there were actual complaints that were actually filed, not just by victims or people who were being investigated for a crime, whether it's related to use of force or sexual abuse or whatever, but by fellow officers, and that those complaints were stopped at the supervisor level. They never made it to even the Bureau of Professional Standards, which, by the way, when they do make it to BOPS, it is very rare, if not a miracle, once in a blue moon, Haley's comment that BOPS ever agrees that the officer ever did anything wrong, which is not a good sign of an internal investigation. Generally speaking, there should be some times when there's a situation that's discovered, it's brought out, and an officer, we don't want this to happen, right? We want them all to be heroes. We don't want them to be criminals doing bad stuff, but it does happen. And then so you're supposed to immediately remove that person from the job. And I've had a lot of conversations this week. This is one of the best reporter weeks that I've had in a while. Where we're talking to people and we're talking to sources, and having phone calls with people that you don't always expect to have. And then, of course, I have other jobs as well, so this is my only job. But one of the things that came up often is this idea that a cop in Worcester somehow being doing crime is like a unicorn, right? That's like that never happens. But we have police departments just nearby and all over the country where this does happen, and there's not as much pushback from those departments that this can never happen. And what happens is those departments that accept that there are humans who do these jobs, and there are humans that make bad mistakes, and sometimes they commit crimes. They're actually those departments in other towns and cities, even here in Massachusetts, are trusted more by their community because they admit fault. But for some reason, the Worcester Police Department wants to be talked about at every level as if there is no fault. And I experienced some very negative conversations this week with police officers not being nice to me, and only because I agree that this report reveal something that is a systemic issue. Now, it is what it is. Again, we've been working these things for a long period of time between Tom and I. There's probably about 10 years involved in this reporting, right? And I want to give credit to Brad Petroshan over at TMG. I agree that he's he's probably the best reporter they have, and does dig into these things. I just don't agree with the structure of the TMG because I feel like the TMG buffers Brad's reporting often with, not questionable editorial things. But anyways, that's a newspaper. That's inside baseball. The point is that working this story, you end up being close to people that are part of the story, right? Not just the victims who by the way their voices deserve to be heard, but also some officers that don't want to be called racists and rapists and and evidence planters. By the way, that part of the report kind of got like just ignored. You know what I mean? Like, there's some stuff that's happening here. All of it kind of coming out all at once, and and so that's what Before we even get into some of the news that we're going to break here tonight, which is exciting. If you're watching and you're an officer, or you're a city council member, or you're a local person here in the city of Worcester, there is this general like tone that comes when you disagree with people here, right? If you say I disagree with you, there's this like, what do you mean you disagree with me? How dare you?
I don't think that's a Worcester thing. I think that's a post-Trump America thing.
It's just I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've been around Worcester for a long time. I feel like I don't and I don't want to like what I forget who it was. Maybe it was Bill Shaner who talked about the bubble, the bubble over Worcester. It's like a separate entity from the rest of the world. There is a sense sometimes that Worcester's like its own place, and we act as if there's like a uniqueness to here. And I want Worcester to be better, but man, you guys take everything personal, and I just don't understand why. If one officer is accused of a bad crime, that doesn't mean all officers are accused of a bad crime, unless, of course, you knew about that crime and you actively participated in covering up that crime. Then that would make you bad too. In fact, normally we call that an accessory.
Yes, for us plebs, that's being an accessory.
That would be being an accessory, right? It's actually a crime. So, it's funny. You ever hear someone say this idea that if you didn't have anything to hide, then you would let the police in, or you would all this like that kind of tone. Yep. So it's like it directed towards the regular person. Like I have to just be an open book, and I have nothing to hide, and it's okay to be surveilled by the government illegally. It's okay to have my cell phone tapped on a regular basis, and if I wouldn't do anything wrong, then it wouldn't be. So why wouldn't the same standard apply backwards to the police that are actually in charge of investigating these things? If you didn't have anything to worry about, why are you so upset?
Yeah, and that's that is the strange part about the reaction to this is like, I've heard they want names because we got to get these guys out of here, but I mean, and that's fine, but like what you're gonna end up doing is unmask. Is like the federal people went to the federal government, went to the Department of Justice because they were having this investigation under the premise that they would be anonymous.
Yeah,
because that's how these investigations are conducted, or at least the report is written. And they gave information, and unless you just believe like the Biden administration launched a deep state conspiracy against Worcester, by the way, a place that no one outside of it cares about at all. Let's just be clear about that. Like who? Would they throw a dart at the dartboard and they're like, "Oh, Worcester, we'll just pick on them"? Like it's ridiculous. And then I guess then if you believe that, then you can get to everything in the report's totally fabricated, which is an insane position. But if you agree not everything in the report is false, like maybe they got some stuff wrong, or interpret what they whatever. It's not supposed to be. It's not even about those things. It's about that you can't find them, and you have no hope of knowing that these things are going on because of the systemic problems you have, right?
Yeah. But
So I don't doubt that there's many cops that want these people off the force, but I mean, we learned about if you wanted to know who they were, if you wanted like all this information you're demanding that the DOJ get you, they only did this investigation because you didn't. And if you did, and I mean the city, I don't mean the individual cop, I mean the city as a whole. They have this information because they did an investigation that you didn't. If you had done it, you'd have the information.
well,
So too bad for you.
but let me say this: they do have the information. This there. So in particular, the organization Lyft, Nikki Bell Pena in particular, but others as well, have been presenting the names of these officers to the police department for years. Not like the other day, not like even in the timeline of the reporting. This has been a consistent problem for the women on the fringes of Worcester society for decades. And this information is brought to the police department. By the way, if you look at the report, they have reports of this information being presented to them. They just decided that it's not credible. And that's really the issue, is that these women were bringing the information, not just like, hey, this one person showed up and made this wild accusation. No, no, no. Consistent people who didn't know each other bringing the same general facts about a specific group of officers. Now, however you want to deal with this, the Vice team in Worcester has a history of controversy. Like, it didn't just start the other day. All right, the former leader of Vice, Tim O'Connor, who and it was now a professor at Clark University, was run out because he brought up some issues with Vice. If you remember, there was big controversy. They stripped him of his sergeant's rank, put him in uniform, and then on his last day at work, he got into a hostage situation. It's like a crazy story, right? But real time stuff. He brought up some issues about drugs and evidence being moved and around. This was from a police officer now who was a lieutenant for years, and he was run right out of the force in like 5 seconds. And I saw stories about him in the newspaper for years saying that he was a bad guy. Now he's a professor at Clark University in Worcester State, right? And so he's kind of like, they like shuffled him off the coil. But this is stuff that we've been hearing about for 20 years, Tom. They know these names. They know these names. The very concerning thing is that the union, the proposal that is placed on the city council agenda for Tuesday is asking for the names of the officers. And because Vice officers are not like, it's not like a huge amount of people, right? It's not like the 185 person Worcester Police Force has 175 people working Vice. Vice is a small unit. Technically they consider it an elite unit. It's a specialized unit to get into Vice, right? And so when you find out those officers who've been accused and those officers are named in public, are those officers what are they gonna do? Because these groups of women are not a large group of women either. Right. So it's not like they're not going to know who would be potentially accusing them. And so that's the really big question. You're suppressing evidence. You're witness intimidating through the press.
Yep.
Which Absolutely. Is something we've heard about over the past few years, right? In the national scene. That's bad, right? That's what's happening right now.
Yes. And absolutely.
And that's what we're talking about. What
intended
needs to be
or not. It doesn't really matter.
And I think it is intended, though. I think it's supposed to send a chilling message because it's so uniform, Tom. The mayor, the city manager, the chief of police, the police union, the head of the public safety committee, a uniform questioning of the credibility of the evidence. Uniform across the board. Everybody's like, hey, we need to see this evidence. Of reports that you've been getting for 20 years, you need to see evidence of those reports that you've been getting for 20 years. That and again, here's the interesting thing about this report that we've been given. It's a summary of evidence. It's not all the evidence. That's to come. And so those are going to be, and I feel like this is really bad public relations that's going on here from our unified voice, the wall of Worcester, because what if some of those reports that start to pop out from the Department of Justice over time, what if they turn out to be internal documents, which have names on them, which you have? So that makes the police department look stupid. And now that's the leadership making a decision. Yeah, I was really disappointed in Chief Sausier's statement to the TNG because that makes it seem like he either doesn't know what's going on in a unit he used to supervise, or he's intentionally doing it through the press because they want to have this unified voice. And that either way, that looks bad to me.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be lost in kind of analyzing this that he it will likely be appointed in February. That's when the law that enabled them to do all, to appoint him. We covered that in the past, civil service stuff, and the city opted out or applied to the state to opt out, and that didn't happen until a bill passed just recently. So they'll be able to appoint him the permanent chief in February. So. Maybe I'm giving him a pass. Maybe we're giving him a pass a little bit by saying this, but I mean, that's a lot of pressure to be under when, especially the guy who appoints you is saying this is what we're going to do. But nonetheless, he said it. I don't think he should have. It was disappointing.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
I also think that he'll be willing to have that conversation, which is a good thing. But I don't know that the same can be said for some of the other people we're talking about. And then I don't want to again. I don't want to brush broadly. But if you notice, the statements are all the same. It's like they have to take the time to praise the police department that isn't doing this stuff. It's like we know there's officers who don't do anything, but we think we take this really seriously. Well, you really don't. Because the approach should have been, in my opinion, this is opinion. It's not reporting. We're going to get into some hard, actual, factual reporting in a minute. But my opinion is there should have been one statement released by the city of Worcester. It should have been signed by the chief of police, the city manager, the mayor, and all the city councilors. And it should have been this: we're going to do everything we can to get to the bottom of this. We're going to find the people that are involved, and we will get them out, and we'll make sure that anybody who's committed a crime is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. That's it. You don't question the victims. You don't do anything, even if you think there's credibility issues. Even if you think that, you don't do that. If you're a well-managed public relations department, which clearly you have failed, because obviously you're getting a response. By the way, the response from your normal ally at the Telegram and Gazette, Brad's article, is unbelievably damning for the city of Worcester. You look horrendous having that in the paper record, and having a reporter like Brad, who's I mean, I look at Brad as a model reporter. He's impeccable with his sources. He digs things out that that I try to get to sometimes. There's people who talk to him that won't talk to me. There's people. The same thing with Tom. There's like this. That's how reporters are, right? And so that's in the Telegram and Gazette. This wasn't just reported, you know, on This Week in Worcester or just on Manny, and because they look at us as lesser, right? They look at us as not as big a deal. No, this is hitting everywhere, and it's in the national papers. It hit the USA Today. I saw it on Yahoo's
New York
main
Times. Yeah.
New York Times. I mean, this is the chief was complaining how the officers have to go home and talk about it with their families. Well, yeah, they do. Yeah, yeah. Go home and explain that. Go home and explain that. And if you're not the person doing it, show it to your wife. Show her your cell phone records and all that stuff. Get it done. Do the work of having to have a relationship. We all have those things happen to us, thanks to the world of social media, dude. If you click like on somebody's picture in a relationship, that person might lose their mind. So why do you think it would be lesser for a police officer who happens to be in a department that's under a federal investigation? I just don't understand.
Yeah, and because and that's just such a crazy argument. Like, what? So because a cop's going to talk to his wife, that we shouldn't, we should just, oh, that's too much. We should just keep all this stuff hidden. Like, no, sorry, it's your inconvenience. But other people are inconvenienced too by having trauma. So
yeah. Because if there's a chance, even the thing that I wish, I mean, again, I have a lot of relationships on the police department and with, city administrators and workers and employees. The thing that I want people to think about is if one of these cases is real, and I think there's way more than that, that alone is a damning statement against the Department of the Worcester Police Department. Just one. But it's not just one, and it's not just this stuff. It's not just the sexual abuse. It's not just the overuse of force. It's not just the fact that the science shows that you pull over Hispanics and African Americans at an enormous rate beyond folks, even though they're by far minorities. Here in the city of Worcester, right? Like that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like it's an overall thing. But if just one of those things was true, as a police officer, you should have to explain that to your family. Yeah,
Well, I mean,
what's
that's
going on.
I don't know. That's a little.
It was so ridiculous.
How people handle their family is their business.
Yeah.
But like, and I don't understand. It seems like when you say Worcester Police Department, like that's an institution, right? That doesn't that because you work there doesn't mean that when it says Worcester Police Department that reflects on all of you. And people that think it does, I mean, they can think what they want. I don't agree. So again, the problem is, and I don't know how this is getting. I think this is being intentionally missed. Frankly, is the issue is that you can't figure out who the bad guys are because of structures and infrastructure about supervision, and that only isn't just to detect bad things going on, but to also coaching and instruction and helping people continually improve at whatever it is they're doing, which we should all strive to do, is continue to get better. So
Yeah, have they hit of perfection over there? Apparently, that's exactly right. They think they're just amazing at everything. So it's like,
yeah.
Don't you want to get better?
And now the Department of Justice is picking on you.
Out of nowhere, for no reason at all. It's just complete. It's a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt.
If every detail of every case isn't exact, that doesn't mean we need to unmask a bunch of people that again went to their federal government to offer information that ideally to hope that the police department will get better. And there's a lot of people that I personally was kind of critical of, because they're so cynical. They say, I don't know why you're even worried about this. They're not going to do anything. The city's never going to change. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, they have all the political cover in the world that they need to say, we didn't even say it now. They did. We're just going to fix it. Yeah. And instead, what they've done is engage in this just straight denialism.
They doubled down. They doubled down.
I like to believe at this point, if you're, one of the, I would say hundreds. I know I counted at least 100 since 2014. But I mean, it's grueling to go through every meeting and every agenda to see what happened and see if somebody might comment. But I mean, we've all seen scores of people go to City Hall and go to a city council meeting, and either, some yelled and screamed, and some talked about like national issues that weren't necessarily relevant to the conversation there. But people offered their personal experience, or their experiences that of their close, friends or loved ones. And they were just ignored. They were, if not just outright laughed at. I mean, in 2014, a bunch of people went to City Hall after protests in the city. And if you watch the video, like, there's very little yelling and screaming. Actually, who did the most yelling and screaming was the at the time, the president of the Patrolmen's Union, who came in and talked about a bunch of things that happened in New York, and then made no connection to Worcester, but seemed like, well, if you're protesting, then you're all the same. Cool. But if you say that about cops, they freak out. And so it's all very weird. But all those people, and the two comments that I did hear, that I did find, looking back at stuff that really stood out was, one was, I'm from Florida, and I have never been treated by the police like this in the South. Obviously a black man. And the second was a black woman who said, they hate us, and we know they hate us because they tell us.
Yes. That is a common thing. I've heard of that a lot. That the officers on a regular basis let African American and Hispanic citizens of Worcester know that they are not liked by the police department. Right. That is a general consensus. And by the way, that didn't just start the other day. That is a common theme. The other thing that is a common theme, Tom, going back 30, 40 years, is the attitude that police officers approach people in any situation where they have to engage them, other than the public facing stuff like at the Festival of Lights, or when they have to go out and do something with the kids and that kind of stuff. In every other situation, generally speaking, the 90% of people testify that the Worcester Police Department has an attitude, a pissy, upset, angry, like, my life is terrible. I have to be here. You're making my life terrible because I have to come to this accident scene, or I have to come to, you called in, you called something in, or anything like that. It's a very common thing. We have a report by the Regional Research Bureau about the addresses who the Worcester Police Department apparently feels like they don't have to respond to. I mean, this is like a common theme about how people in the community feel. The perfect example is traffic enforcement, right? So between Chandler Street and Main Street, there's this massive high level amounts of traffic enforcement, which makes sense. Those are high volume streets. But man, isn't it weird that when you pass WPI, that same main travel zone, the traffic enforcement drops consistently? It's weird how that works, right? Like, there's a lot of those weird things, and if you bring them up with an officer, and again, I have, and the response is always the same: "How dare you? How dare you question? How dare you say?" And it's like, bro, that makes you look guilty.
Well, even the premise of "how dare you question," like,
how
you're part of the government. You're supposed to be questioned.
Yeah. But so now, part of what tonight's show is about is we have done some work this week. Into some of the statements made by the city manager's office that just didn't really make a lot of sense. And the
no. The city manager engaged in an intentional and deliberate campaign to manipulate the people of the city through a series of statements that were riddled with misinformation.
And there was inconsistencies, there was inaccuracies, there was straight up contradictions between some of the statements that didn't make a lot of sense. And so those things made, me go digging. And in particular, I have a relationship with several people in the Department of Justice, the Massachusetts U.S. Attorney's Office. I do. And now, not Tom does not. I'm just telling you that I do. And I have been working this story and trying to get more and more details from the story for some serious amount of time. And so I was able to talk to two people that worked in preparation of this report directly on the phone. I spoke with them, and I was able to confirm some things. And I'm going to let Tom break the news. But one of the conclusions, or one of the statements that we heard, was that this report was rushed.
Correct.
This report was rushed. So what did we find out, Tom?
So from several federal sources, we found out a couple things that just that this pile of rubbish that this attorney hired by the city. And by the way, his statement that was released to the Telegram before the report was published by the Department of Justice was seen by and approved by City Manager Batista. That we didn't even report that. That was they gave that statement to somebody else. I think Mass Live. Yep. So when your attorney goes out in public with a public statement as your attorney, speaking as your attorney on the issue in which you hired him to deal with, and especially now that we know that it was approved, but even if it hadn't been, that's your statement. You don't get to what your lawyer says on your behalf isn't different from what you say. And I realize I'm delayed and I've been trying to fix it. I don't know why. So
people are with you, Tommy. Don't worry about it. You're good.
So turns out that according to multiple federal sources, that the suggestion that this report was rushed is asinine, because it was It was actually scheduled to be originally, absolutely asinine. It was scheduled to be released prior to the to election day,
That's correct.
And our sources tell us that, or John's sources tell him, I should say, that uh, it came down from on high, from the top, from the Attorney General.
And let's pause real quick. So, Attorney General Merrick Garland, these reports were going to come out before. Not, and when I say these, it's not just Worcester. There's another city that is in the middle of the same investigation in New York,
White Castle, New York.
White Castle, New York, and Attorney General Merrick Garland. This was confirmed from multiple sources, and I'm sure that once they hear our story, that maybe it'll get confirmed even more. People will do the digging and go reporting that Attorney General Merrick Garland made a department-wide decision not to release many reports that were due prior to the election until after the election, so that his Department of Justice couldn't be accused of manipulating the election. Now, if you remember back in 2016, at the time the FBI had released the report about Hillary Clinton's email server, and that that affected the election. And whether you agree with that or not, it did, and it was literally 3 days before the election. In this case, Merrick Garland, whether you agree with him politically or not, he made a decision to not release this information until after the election. I actually really am grateful for that. One, because it kind of shows our city leadership to be liars. I mean, because they're saying that it was rushed, but it was actually gave some time and thought, and gave some political cover, to the people that work over the Department of Justice, because not everybody is this evil, bad person that is trying to take down, one group or the other, right? So,
yeah. So we don't. So what's left there is you could argue that well, maybe he didn't know, but and that's a reasonable argument, but making something on that too. But more importantly, what he didn't have is any information to indicate what he was saying was true.
Right. There's no sourcing. And every source that I've spoken to, and and again, every single person. This is not like there's one like rogue person telling me this. Every person that I've spoken to at this time confirms that this report was supposed to come out earlier and was delayed. It was not, in fact, rushed. And there is no one on either ideological spectrum that says that they pushed it out faster than it was supposed to be. And so the attorney for the city of Worcester, who made the statement on Monday morning, from what I can see, he just straight up made it up. There's no information to support what he said at any level, anywhere. There's no source. There's no person that'll put their name to it. I'm putting my name on it. I'm stamping my name that I have this story. Not just that I have this story now, but that I will have the people with their names and faces come and talk on Tom's program and Manny's program and all kinds of different places in the future. This story is not over by any means.
Oh, no.
I have this story dead cold. I have texts, I have emails, I have phone calls, and in the future I might have even more that say that this lawyer for the city of Worcester that was hired secretly by the city manager, secretly to the city councilors at least, in 2022, that he published a statement to the Telegram and Gazette and other places, and he is not telling the truth. And he's an attorney, so he's probably going to want to come after me. And what I'm going to say to him is, "Come at me, bro."
Yeah, because he has no source.
I'm ready for it.
And even more interestingly than that, now, City Hall, I mean, under the last city manager and throughout this city manager's tenure has been, I mean, I wouldn't say leak proof, but it's been, it's been pretty quiet. Like getting stuff, getting leaks out of City Hall isn't frequent. It's not a sieve over there. Okay.
No.
Which would indicate, at least, relative to this city manager, that his staff is loyal to him. However, this week Worcester can also report that staff inside City Hall are aware, because there was internal deliberations about it or at least it was discussed during internal deliberations, that the city manager is well aware that this report was slated to come out earlier than it was released. I don't know when he learned that, but I do know that he was well aware of that by Monday when this statement was released. So it would appear, according to people that would know in City Hall, that this is now again the city manager of the city intentionally signing off on what he knows to be deliberate misinformation. And I'm sure that they'll have some fun things to say about me, and
me.
I would just say that, and I would just say to the city manager that you're starting to lose your staff, and it's been a week, so maybe change course.
And I'm gonna say this, like, as we've been developing this story here, it's not just what Tom just said is really true. I have long-term relationships in City Hall that predate a lot of the staff that work there. Okay, so I've been around Worcester a long time, and I don't always exercise those relationships because relationships like that are built up over trust and time. And there have been stories that Tom and I have wanted to publish that we have killed because we didn't have a second source. I mean, just mind-boggling stuff. And for those of you, if I don't know that anybody really follows my reporting career. I could care, that's not really something that people do. But if you remember, I wrote the story about the drones, and I was the person that reported that they were meeting secretly from 2016 on, having training sessions, and that there was a second drone, and that there was an intention to move the money that was designed for the dog program to the drone program. That it was an actual intentionally crafted plan. And if you remember this, that when I first wrote that first initial story, which was published in the Patch, there was feedback from city at the time city manager Augustus, assistant city manager at the time Eric Batista, public safety leader Kate Toomey, all saying that I was lying. Right, all gave public statements, went on Hank Stoll's show, all that stuff, and then the owner of Cloud City Drones, Chris Williams, confirmed all of those stories. And then eventually, I was given access to the police department when I was allowed to take the first pictures of the drone by current chief of police Paul Saucier, who was deputy chief at the time. He brought me in. They admitted the training program, they admitted the second drone, and they admitted the funding mechanism that was used. Everything I said proved to be true. So my sources have turned out to be gold in the past. I'm not, and yet I have not published, and Tom and I have not published things, even though it came from that same group of people who have never told us a lie. Mm-hmm. And so those folks have been quiet for a long time in relation to this story. And I think a big reason why is they are afraid of losing their jobs. If it was found out that they were interacting with me in particular, or Tom, or anybody like that. And I can tell you this, the phone lines have been opened up this week. All of a sudden, a lot of people who were quiet in the past and were not willing to talk, it has been unbelievable. Text message, phone calls, Skypes, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, LinkedIn DMs, personal conversations, walking down the street. All of a sudden people want to talk. And so again, I would recommend to whoever's making the decisions over there about public relations, you got a mutiny on your hands, and people are dropping dimes left and right.
Yeah, and they'll probably use the same tactic here that we're lying. And I would just say that the city manager has lied to you about 20 times this week, and nobody's ever accused me of publishing anything that's false.
You also didn't tell
your own judgment.
The city council. He, right. Again, was exposed. So. Obviously there was this lawyer that was hired without telling the city council, which I don't understand how that's possible, because he's an employee of the city council, and so he should have to be responsive about.
No, he's really not though.
Right.
They can just remove him. But I mean, right. Yeah. So how this played out was, it was revealed that in a council meeting that the city manager received the briefing, and I believe the text of the report on Friday the 6th.
Yeah,
and the report wasn't published publicly by DOJ until the 9th, that following Monday. And he says that the Department of Justice asked him not to indicate that he had the report or not had the report. Just don't make any indications about the report until it's published by the Department of Justice. And so when City Council said, "Well, why didn't we get it when you get it?" He's used that as the reason. Yet this statement from the attorney by which he saw and approved, that's been reported. He's, the Ministry of Propaganda admitted that to Mass Live. I believe it was Mass Live, because I think they commented it to TNG and then later acknowledged it to Mass Live. So he saw it, approved this, and it was released to the Telegram, according to what they published, several hours before it was the report was released. So there we see the city manager's priorities. He does not care. The people that we elect to represent us, he does not care about them and what they have at all. But what is important is what he releases to the press.
And there's a lot of moving parts about this. I mean, so on the same day that he receives this report, City Solicitor Mike Traynor resigns out of nowhere. And I'm not saying that that's connected, but man, that was weird. And then at the actual City Council meeting on last Tuesday, Councilor King asked to bring up this report because it was something that was unanticipated, which is something that is generally a courtesy that's given to any city councilor. They can bring up an issue that's unanticipated at the very end under suspension, right? So at the very end of the meeting, there's a time when the councilors can kind of talk amongst themselves about stuff, because generally public comment has ended and there's very few people in the gallery. And so that's kind of where things often happen in our city. And so then the assistant city solicitor the acting city solicitor, the assistant city solicitor, she made a statement after the mayor asked for advice about whether or not Councilor King could bring this up, which that was a very strange and weird thing, because normally it is courtesy. The assistant city solicitor said that it wasn't unanticipated. We had this report. So, of course, that was news to the other 10 city councilors, because Mayor Petty apparently was provided with this on Sunday, which is really weird. Again, there's really not a lot of meat in the charter to hold people accountable, but the city manager provided it to the mayor, and he has made public statements where, hey, that basically is me fulfilling my duty. I gave it to the one person, and he doesn't have to give it to the other 10. That's very strange, and I don't know that the charter was ever intended to be that one person would receive information and the other 10 would be denied. But there was never any heads up given to anybody but Mayor Petty about the statement from the attorney. And so I want to point out some stuff.
No, that's incorrect. I think it was I think it was TNG reported that the mayor said that he saw that statement on Sunday.
The mayor, but the other city councilors were they found out about it in the Telegram and Gazette. I think
correct. I think like many of us, we woke up and the first thing.
Bergman. I mean, this is univocal that the 10 other city councilors all found out about it from the newspaper and not from the city manager, which is very strange. But the professional courtesy that he extended to the Department of Justice, although he didn't finish the job, right? Because he let his lawyer leak it to the press. But
So that's the question, right? What's true?
Which one's right?
Did you lie? Was there no request for anything like that, and you lied to the city council? Or did you lie to the Department of Justice when you agreed to their terms and then release a statement preempting the report?
So then I can respond to that, because I have sources in the Department of Justice that have spoken to me very candidly about this. They are pissed off. Their official statement in an email is that they have no comment about the city manager's response, but I'm just telling you that they were angry about the fact that their report was undermined by the release of the lawyer's statement. And so, and the anger is my characterization, not theirs. They didn't tell me that, but they were angry on the phone and in person, and they were very upset about that. And then they did give me an official statement of no comment, but I'm just giving you my perspective, my own analysis is that they're upset about that. And why wouldn't you be? Because he undermined it by giving the TNG the scoop. And it was fed to Brad in this particular case. Again, this is a common refrain with this city manager. He says he's for the community, but man, he feeds the Telegram and Gazette a lot of information. right? So, like, how can you be
Yep.
for the community when you're giving your information to only one source on a regular basis? We've seen stories of innocuous stuff where the press release comes out. I'm on the email list. I get emails from the press releases all the time, and yet the Telegram and Gazette is already running a story,
Yep.
and it's
Happened with the announcement of the
it's
new
edited,
equity officer.
pictures in it. It's like, how did you get that story done so fast? You know what I mean? I
Yep.
know AI is good, but I know the reporters, and I know that they don't use AI. So how did you get that edited, fully vetted document out in the newspaper before anybody else got the press release? That's because they're leaking that stuff on a purpose. Those are purposeful
Yep.
leaks, right? And so again, there's all this like weird information that's happening, and it makes it look really mismanaged, at least,
Yep.
right?
And I'm done asking them for anything. I asked last week when the city manager released his statement in his voice
Yeah.
on the website, which was a much different statement than the statement he approved for the press. It's almost like he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. But in that statement, he mentioned the Human Rights Commission, and so I emailed, the only person that we're allowed to talk, we're supposed to talk to in all of government is the city manager's, city manager's Ministry of Propaganda liaison, and I just simply,
he's gonna love that.
I mean, how many times can you lie to us until we call you a liar?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, and my request was my question was very simple. Was this policy with the Human Rights Commission, where you have been denying them documents for 2 years, since you just mentioned them, and this, and you only say policy, only want them to write policy though. Is this rejecting any documents about internal investigations or misconduct cases within the department? He's been denying them this information for 2 years. And so I asked if that policy was still in place, and they didn't respond. So I'm not going to ask questions anymore because it's a simple policy question, and they can't respond. If you fucking hate me, just tell me, fuck you.
So I'm with you. I understand how you feel, and I think that you're right to feel that way. I think that there's, generally speaking, among the press and government, there's often like a courtesy kind of thing that's supposed to happen. That's long been out the window for a long.
But when I ask you questions about direct policy and you don't answer me, I mean, you don't have to answer me. Just don't expect me to ask you. Don't expect me to check with you on anything.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not on this, especially on this particular story. And part of it is because of the approach of all the people involved. Again, I have relationships with all of them. I've known them for a long time, and to hear them questioning the evidence when they had the evidence, when they keep saying we need more evidence, but you've had the evidence. Public Safety Committee Chair Kate Toomey, she's held, although she doesn't hold a lot of hearings. There's been at those public safety hearings, the organization Lyft has presented these cases to her in person. It's documented. We have camera, city meeting camera of this. These cases being presented to her, and she did not forward them to the city council. That was a controversy just a couple years ago. It's part of what precipitated Nikki Belpena and Lyft going to the federal government and saying, hey, we need some help, getting lawyers and asking, like, hey, the city's not responding. Part of it is that the evidence that they're saying doesn't exist was presented to them at every level that a person would be reasonably expected to present it to, and they have received nothing but deny, a wall of that's not true, and we're not going to look into this, and we don't believe you, and you're a liar, you're a liar. But now we're finding out that it turns out that they're lying about things, and then the lies are being exposed rapid fire. A second element has been the police unions in concert released a statement saying that this was done to get ahead of the administration change, right? So I was able to get multiple sources now. I actually had 2 earlier today. I have had a third text me to confirm it for Tom, because I don't want Tom to put out something that's not confirmed by multiple sources. But multiple sources confirm that the landing team, this is a transition team that exists in every department of federal government as there's a change from president to president. Okay, it's part of what makes our country pretty cool as far as the peaceful transfer of power. Despite what happened at the last election, these landing teams existed for the Biden administration too. There was groups of people that went in and took over. Okay, so for the Department of Justice, there's a landing team and there's an advisor for every U.S. attorney, every single one. This report was run up the ladder to DOJ headquarters where the landing team is operating in Washington, D.C., and they approved the release of this report and the one for White Castle with no edits. So, to those folks at the union who's saying that this is some grand conspiracy to get ahead of President Trump's inauguration in January, I get to call bull on you. I've spoken with officials in both administrations now, and I can tell you that 100% that is a false story. And there is no sourcing of any kind of any authority above who I've spoken to that can say that that's different. Now, I'm open. I'm excited about the opportunity to have people question my sources. I'm excited about that. I get to be a real reporter, right? This is like really exciting times in my life. I've always wanted to do this. I wanted to be Jimmy Olsen my whole life. If you know anybody who knows who Jimmy Olsen is, he's Superman's best friend. It is what it is.
Yeah, and so I would just point out, I don't. It actually didn't say who made the statement, but it was the patrolmen's union, and apologized for not knowing his rank. But that's now the president there is Mr. Duffy. I assume it was him, but I don't know. But it's his organ. He's running.
It didn't have a name sign. It was just the union itself released that
statement. Right. But I just would like to, I just like to ask Mr. Duffy when I see him probably on Tuesday. I've never met him. I don't know who he is. I hope to meet him on Tuesday and present myself as not the enemy.
But dude in person. So.
Yeah, I've never met him, but I hope to. But I will just present to him that I hope you're impressed with the city manager because you repeated a claim in the media, and I assume to your members, because you trusted the city manager, and through no fault of your own, you've now misled your members because the city manager is deciding to lie every 5 seconds.
The only common element between that statement and the city manager's statement is the lawyer who released the statement that he has no sourcing for. So my only just conclusion is that lawyer told the city manager that, hey, they're rushing this and it's not a Trump thing. But this dude's running for U.S. attorney, right? He's trying to get Josh Levi's job. So it's like he's openly talked about it, about being a candidate. Even in this process, since Monday, he's given multiple interviews to multiple outlets all across the state, right, saying that he's interested in that job. My sources tell me that he is not a candidate for that job.
He was reportedly considered in 2017, last Trump administration.
But he wasn't considered for the top job. He was considered for a deputy role, and so. Again, so just real wonky to get wonky for 1 second. Josh Levi, who's the U.S. attorney, he is a 30-year legal veteran, right? Who has run multiple legal organizations around the country in various capacities. You could go on and on about this guy. This guy's a career attorney. That's what he does. And there's been some questions about prosecutorial experience. This guy's tried hundreds of cases.
But so I'll push back there though. I mean, how involved was he in this investigation? Probably not very. I heard some stuff today that I had. It wasn't that long ago today. Yeah. And I haven't been able to run it down. But I think that we'll hear more about who the people that actually did the investigation and whatnot, and that they don't have a ton of experience, is what I've been told. I don't know. I haven't run it down. So I'm not saying this fact. I'm saying that seems to be a narrative that may emerge.
So what I have found is that there's 7 attorneys that worked on this report that were involved in, reviewing the cases and going on. There's more people involved, but there were 7 main attorneys that worked on this report. There's experts and other people that were involved. There was witnesses, lots of different stuff. I understand that U.S. Attorney Levy came and became involved when the report was paused before the election. So his attention on this really, as far as I can find, I can't speak for him. You folks can ask the questions. We've tried to get an interview with him. Currently, the top Department of Justice is not allowing him to speak to the media. That's what's being told to me right now. So I'm sure he would be. He's a very personal guy. He's going to be at the meeting on Wednesday, so maybe you'll have an opportunity to ask him these questions directly yourselves. And so go to that meeting. Go to Tuesday. Maybe he'll be at the meeting on Tuesday. I don't know. But what I understand is he became heavily involved because they had made the decision to delay the report, and so then there was a review, as there is with any report delayed. It's an internal policy of the Department of Justice that normally when a report like this is delayed, they review it. So he at least read it. And I know that he read it because he then presented it on Zoom or whatever we watched the Zoom. He read at least he read the headings, and then he gave some of the other attorneys an opportunity to explain the different sections. So the point is that this is a comprehensive document that seems like they checked all the boxes, in my opinion. It looks like very professional, very well done. The concept of prosecutorial thing seems to be going back to why didn't they indict anybody? Well, they were never given that authority to do that. Even by the Biden administration, that was not what they were given. Their authority in this case was to develop a document related to Worcester Police's patterns and practices, not to go after indicting them. And part of the program was officers were given anonymity, not immunity. They don't have the right to give immunity grants in this situation. Anonymity to speak with the Department of Justice. Am I saying anonymity? Is that not how I said it?
That's too many letters, but go ahead.
Whatever.
Anonymity.
So they were allowed to remain anonymous in the report in exchange for giving their own testimony. And my sources, the same sources that have confirmed that worked on the report, more than 100 active and retired or transferred or no longer Worcester Police Department officers participated in this report. That's my reporting. That's not Tom's. But that's what I'm telling you is that's what we have. More than 100 officers. So corroborating officers corroborated this stuff. And so what I see to respond to the union thing, it looks like you're looking for officers' names so then you can hammer them as rats. That's what it looks like to me. You want to find out who told so then you can go after them. And so that is not a word conducive to the new. Yeah, my accent messed up that word. But so the point is that this information was developed over a 2-year period in this office, but this is an investigation that predates it because there is actual internal documentation of many of these incidences going back to at least 2017, if not before that. So this idea that this was this, massively rushed thing. No, we're talking about a 7+ year investigation into whether or not there's some bad people working at the Worcester Police Department, and that was precipitated, another bad word for me, by the behavior of certain police officers before 2017. So it wasn't like it just started the other day, okay? So saying that is a red herring. You're just trying to get people off the trail. It's like, oh, it got rushed. Anybody who says, if you're watching this show, whether you're, again, and I see that there's some city councilors that are watching right now. I appreciate you checking in with Tom and I. Try to be fair. There's some police officers watching. If you say that the story was rushed, you are 100% wrong. That is a false statement. We have all the sources to track that down. This report was supposed to be released before the election, and they delayed it. So it wasn't rushed, it was delayed. And second, the Trump administration, at least the incoming landing team for the Department of Justice, they approved the release of this report. Even though they don't have the authority to do that, they gave their assent, which is not always the case with reports like this at the end of an administration. So good for them. They did the right thing here. They did not interfere. But I would say to this part is 2 of those lawyers of the 7 were Trump appointees. So this was a
no, they would be. So you keep saying this. They would be career employees. So they would have been hired. They were hired in the first administration. They weren't appointed. They were hired. But both are, I think, from what I understand from you, registered Republicans.
Registered Republicans that have worked on this case and have been a part of it for years. Former police officers. Now, I mean, obviously, I'm giving away information that could help people find out who these guys are. But I am under the understanding.
I think all of that's public. I think that's all findable.
but I'm under the understanding that eventually those two guys are going to come and talk with us on the show as this stuff shakes out. So we're going to have, the conservatives that were involved in this case and helped develop the evidence and help do this investigation come on and talk about the fact that they supported this investigation, were involved, and that's a pretty I think a brave thing for them to do. And
it hasn't happened yet, and that probably won't happen until next year.
But the fact is that they allowed me to say that that there was people involved in this case that were involved in writing the document, confirmed that this report was due to be released before the election, and that the Trump team approved it. That's a major story because the city manager and
the opposite
police union are saying something completely opposite of that. And so that's, again, it is what it is. I don't know what to tell you. If you're mad at me for reporting that, that's on you. You shouldn't have lied. I don't know I don't know what else to say.
Yeah,
what else to
say? And I would just say to any city councils watching, after the week of this city manager, who has lied to the people of the city with intent to manipulate them, for the record, over and over and over this week, I don't know what to say for you if somebody doesn't hold the order on his contract tomorrow. And if you vote for that tomorrow, you're co-signing it. That's what you're doing. This man is way over his head. He is becoming more authoritarian as time goes on. He has done more and more to cut you out, to keep you in the dark, city council. And by the way, he's actively violating the law. An ordinance passed by a previous city council, of course, it's been there for a long time, actively violating the law by refusing to provide the Human Rights Commission with the information it requests. We have no oversight of anything in this city. Mm-mm. There is no oversight for anything by design. And what we have is, for police issues, we had the Human Rights Commission that was looking at discipline stuff, and we have the Public Safety Committee. And the public safety, we talked a little bit about this before, but during the tenure under the leadership of its current leader, its current chairperson, Councilor Kane Toomey, since 2016, 8 years, that committee has not requested one order related to discipline. It has not taken the time to review one internal affairs investigation. So, number of reports or anything related to discipline requested, 0. Number of internal investigations reviewed, 0. But there is a chairperson's order in which the chairperson, Councilor Kate Toomey, wanted a cost, and this is really stunning, wanted a cost benefit analysis comparing the cost of body cameras to the projected cost of continued civil rights violation lawsuit settlements. So I just want you to understand that what the chairperson of public safety wanted to deliberate is if it was cheaper to allow your civil rights to your constitutional rights to continue to be violated. And it's just gross. It's just gross.
It's just great. So again, I also want to respond, Tommy. I don't want it to get missed out because I know we're going to talk about it again, but the city manager, in his statement, the police chief, in his statement to the Telegram and Gazette, the mayor, and then the police union all talked about this idea that they're all committed to discipline and internal, making sure that things are handled the right way. So I want to point out that at least on one of these cases, which is great because it's right here, and there was a police report attached to this, so this is not an unknown case. But we had a young man, 17 years old, right, who was not fitting the description, and who was tased multiple times in his back as he ran away from a police officer. Okay, so the young man did not fit the description, but the officer admitted that and pursued him anyways. In the police report, the radio signals out, "Hey, I see this kid. He's wearing white pants. I'm going after him." The dispatcher says the description, and the officer still continued to engage. He then discharged his weapon in violation of his own internal policies in the pyramid of force to the back of the young man. And the explanation was, well, he could have run into some people, so I needed to get him down. Again, we're discharging our weapon or the taser, whatever, however you want it, it's a weapon to me. And then to a person that doesn't fit the description, and then
Who's actively running away.
while he's running away, because we think he could run into other people, even though the dispatcher is saying that that's not the description. Okay, so we have this is what's happening live. The partner of this officer wrote a report contradicting this officer's original filed report. When the supervisor, as part of the policy, brought the reports together, he filed an amended report, which we have. This is evidence that we have. This is not made up. This is not secret information. This is something you can request. It's available on the city's website. This is documented information. This officer was never disciplined. He didn't even have to go home for the day. He didn't even have to, like, hey, take a break, kid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you made a mistake, like, nothing. How can you, and so I'm not even gonna get into the worst, like, we don't have enough time to go into some of the really deeper, darker, terrible situations. Just that one alone. He was never disciplined. He's still on the force. We know this officer's name.
There's two cases in the report that, of course, we're not going to talk about. We know all about those cases, right? It is the case of the cop who beat up a pastor and tased him in the back for saying words
3 times.
So understand that, and so the officer gave him an illegal order, which he did not comply with, because he doesn't have to, because he's got no reason to tell the guy he can't stand on the sidewalk. He's got no right to do that. And then, the guy said words. He called the guy a tyrant for trying to give him an illegal order. And so the officer decided to, and this is all on this was during the body cam trial. The officer decided to chase this man into his church in front of his children and tase him in the back a few times.
Right.
And the internal investigation found that he did nothing wrong. That it's okay to beat up a person for saying words. So the lesson there is that a police officer, if he decides that you don't have a First Amendment right, you don't have a First Amendment right, is what the message they're sending. The message they're sending is, if you beat up people for no reason, it's okay. Right? And so extend that to, it's a tough job, right? I'm not saying it's not. People do tough stuff. But if you're out there dealing with something difficult, and it would be easier to take a step or 2 or 3 or 4 over the line because nobody's watching, which is what the report says. There's the ability to supervise is non-existent. So nobody's watching, and even if I do end up in a discipline hearing, they'll just cut me loose. That's the message it sends. And then we know we know a whole lot about the beer garden situation. Now it was a tough situation. There was obviously facetiously, there was a million fights inside the place that night, and cops wanted to break them all up and were involved in fights. And I'm sure it was crazy, and I'm sure adrenaline was on high. But a kid by the name of Chris Ayala, who I met and have talked to a bit, sweetest kid in the world.
Very nice kid.
He is. He lived in an apartment building right next to the beer garden at the time. And so there's a lot of it wasn't like fights on the sidewalk, but there's people on the sidewalk and cops, and they've got it cordoned off. And he walked up to one officer, and he asked if he could get through to go home. Like, can I go this way to go home? And for no reason whatsoever, another officer who was handling a canine at the time grabbed Ayala from the back, whipped him into the dog, which then attacked him. And then, of course, you have the pounce, right? You have the gang pounce on top of everybody, and or on top of the suspect. So after beating the crap out of him, they took him to jail. And then this officer, and I really want to say his name, but I figured that would probably, I don't want to be pulled over every minute. The officer involved filed charges against this man who did nothing to deserve or provoke this response. It wasn't a response. The officer, rogue, psychotic, thug officer from grabbing this person from behind and whipping him into a dog. After he did all that, after he assault, beat the crap out of this kid, he then sent him to jail and filed charges against him for assault on a police officer, which never happened, for resisting arrest, which never happened, and a whole bunch of stuff, and some other stuff. And we only know this because after this incident, this is pre-body cam era, Chris himself got the surveillance video from the place that he lived that showed that everything that he was charged with was nonsense.
And then did they drop the charges immediately, Tom?
Oh no, the Worcester County DA screwed with him for several more months, trying to get him to plea. They wanted him to plea for being attacked. So like that the Worcester, so the Worcester County District Attorney's Office is zero help in any of this. I mean, he's still trying to recover from the patrolman's officers, the patrolman's union telling him a few years ago that the totally untrained for and totally disjointed and uncoordinated beatdown of a bunch of Clark kids on Main Street a few years ago. He's still trying to get them back because he didn't charge kids for getting beat up.
Mm.
So this officer.
Did the police department ever apologize for that?
No. But you'll pay for it though. You'll pay for it. And so
so they're for discipline though, Tom, right? I mean,
oh no, everything that was legitimate. So first of all, at the beer garden thing. So then after Chris dealt with all that, filing a false police report, by the way, is a crime. It's a misdemeanor in Massachusetts, and is not covered by qualified immunity. So this officer not only, if he was any other human being besides a police officer, this would be a vicious assault. But you can't call it that because he's a police officer, and so he's
rapid fire decision making, Tom, in the line of fire.
But were charges against this officer who filed these false charges intentionally trying to destroy this person's life? Oh, and by the way, Chris is a dreamer. So without that surveillance video, it's almost certain that he would have not only gone to prison, but then would have had an immigration detainer coming out of prison and be sent to a country that he never remembers being in. Because this officer is a psychopath and tried to ruin his life. And what was the finding from the internal investigation was that he violated a policy related to handling the dog.
Did he get disciplined, Tom?
Still on the force. I believe he did get disciplined for his policy violation with the dog.
What was the discipline like? Did he
go vicious, brutal, thug-like attack from behind like a coward? No, he was not disciplined for that. That is all, according to the internal investigation unit of the Worcester Police Department, that is all within the scope of their policy. That's a blatant lie. It's not within the scope of their policy. But BOPS is there to adjudicate claims against cops, not find bad cops.
So real quick, Tom, is there more than one incident like this? So here's the thing is that, but the city manager, I mean, I'm really having a hard time believing you, Tom, because the city manager said that they're committed to excellence and management and being the best managed city in the country. And the chief of police, he made a statement in the Telegram Gazette that there's not these many incidents like that, and this is very rare. And the police unit made it seem like, man, this is really bad to have these things associated with the police of Worcester. So are you telling me that there's more than one incident? I don't know if I can believe that, Tom.
Shawnee, I believe that Chris Ayala, if I remember correctly, it was 275. He got 275,000. They settled out of court. So I believe that was the number.
Hey, real quick, the story that I was describing, because someone texted me while you were talking about the kid that was in the white pants, right? Did you know that part of that report was the officer fired a second set of darts at the kid? And in his report, the person texted me, hey, why don't you explain what the officer had to change in his report? He wrote in his report that the reason he fired the second set of darts at the prone teenager, who did not match the description and was not resisting arrest, was because he was trying to pull out the first set of darts. It shocked him and he accidentally deployed it again. But we have video. Imagine that. We have video that the officer did not try to pull the darts out until after he had shot the second set of darts. The only reason we found out about this is because we were lucky that his partner told the truth on the report. That's the only reason this ever happened. And the lawyer for the kid was able to get the video. By the way, this young man was charged with resisting arrest. He was charged with fleeing and evading a crime, and he was charged with assault and battery on a police officer. By the way, assault and battery on a police officer when he was tased, backing up, and then tased in the back a second time. I don't know what assault there is, but it turns out there's a video of this entire incident, and that officer lied. That officer was never disciplined. That investigation never made it to Bob's. It was handled at the supervisor level only. And let me just real quick, I just want to pin this thing real quick. This is from the section of the report where they talked about 87 deployments of the taser from the department in the period that they viewed. They only were allowed to view a random sample. That's how we get this kind of patterns in practice. So they didn't even review all 87 incidents, Tom. They only were able to review a handful of these sample internal documents. So these were internal documents that they reviewed and were able to discover these cases with video evidence contradicting the officers who have never been disciplined. To my friends on the police department, this is not a split-second decision-making process. This is a deliberate, intentional, and willful period of lying and deceitfulness and charging kids who did not do anything wrong. It's not to say that no one ever does anything wrong, but at least in these two incidents we just described, there's at least 2 times that in the last 5 years that the police department has engaged in a department-wide conspiracy to falsely charge 2 ethnic young men with fake crimes, and the police officers that were the arresting officer, the reporting officer, both lied deliberately about what happened, and we only found out about it because there was video. If that guy's your friend, and you say that that back the blue, that guy's a hero, you're an idiot. That is ridiculous. You're an idiot. And I know I'm going to have to deal with you in public. I've been getting phone calls and text messages and death threats all week. I don't care. I don't care, because that is ridiculous. Your response to that is, this dude shouldn't be working in here anymore. One more thing, Tommy, to hit the sexual assault stuff real quick. According to Nikki Belpena of Lyft, the officer who was having sex with the young girl in the cemetery, he was taken off the beat. According to the document here, he was taken off the beat. Why?
This is the 13-year-old girl?
No, this is the 19-year-old girl.
Okay.
My question is that if he didn't do anything wrong,
well, I was
why
taken
off the beat? Can anybody explain that to me? Text me, call me, send me a Skype, send me a message. Put a post on Facebook where you say that I'm this and that and the other thing. If that officer was taken off the beat, why? Explain that.
And then you have the case of Natalie Cosenza.
Yeah. This is even worse.
Who was convicted of I forget what the charges were, but it was allegedly a case of what appears to be, he wasn't charged with attempted rape, but that's what it looked like. Someone broke into a house and attempted to attack a woman in her sleep. And after he did 16 years in jail, he was released based on this is after the court system had done a big study on witness reliability and all that stuff, and they had a bunch of new policies in place. And it was basically because of that they went back and looked at his case and cut him loose when he was almost done with his entire sentence, based on the judge refusing a witness about specifically witness reliability. But however, he of course sued now because he's got no criminal. He does not have a crime on his record for the 16 years that he spent in jail. And of course he sued. And during that civil trial, a jury determined that Officer Kerry Hazelhurst fabricated evidence.
Sergeant Kerry Hazelhurst.
Oh, pardon me.
Yeah.
And you'll never guess. You'll never guess where is Sergeant Hazelhurst employed currently?
At the Worcester Police Department.
Really?
Yeah.
And then Oh, I'm gonna forget his name. And then there was another case many years prior, the Natron case, where two thugs bullied a teenager into a confession for a murder that wasn't a murder. For the murder, she confessed to murdering her after she denied it for what this video is all public, for just a grueling amount of time while these two thugs leaned on her. They bullied her into a confession for the death of her son that wasn't a murder, and she spent 2.5 years in jail or so before she got out. And our chief of the time, and this is the root cause. It is 20 years of failed leadership. The chief at the time, Gary Jem, a true psychopath, he promoted one of those officers to the Bureau of Professional Standards. So this person spent after costing the city $2.3 million, taxpayers $2.3 million, because of course they violated $1 billion of this girl's rights. Then one was promoted to investigate other bad officers until he retired. So now that scumbag is collecting a pension that should be reserved for good officers, and his partner in that case was Hazelhurst's partner in the Nat Cosenza case, and he was that same civil jury found him to be a co-conspirator in that evidence manufacturing or evidence manipulation case, and he is also he's now retired. So $10 million in lawsuits later, he's now retired and collecting pension from good cops.
Hey, real quick, did the internal investigation by the police department ever agree with these outside adjudications that the police involved these specific officers that they did anything wrong, Tom?
You're going to be shocked when I tell you that they did not.
Oh, they did not. So now again,
hold on. I don't know if there was an internal investigation on the Tron case. Actually, I've never seen it, so I don't know. I have seen the file on Knott's case, and so there's a lot of things in that case, and they found, they seem to go right up to the line, and this is a tactic they use. They just seem to go right up to the line and then not ask the next question that gets into the area where there was actually misconduct. I remember in one file they say something like in the conclusion, like, well, we can't know. Well, your standard of evidence in those investigations is a preponderance of evidence, which is, by the way, the same standard of evidence used in civil cases. So because it wasn't a criminal case, shouldn't really matter, because the standard of evidence in civil cases is preponderance of evidence, same as it's supposed to be in internal investigations with boss. But they play with that to let people off.
Just random question, just like outside of some of these specific incidents. Hey, has anybody ever been arrested by the Worcester Police Department and then convicted by DA Early, and it turned out it was a wrongful conviction? Has that ever happened in this city?
This was Nat's case was pretty early. That was tried pretty early. It was before he was in office. So
I'm not saying. I'm just saying, has it ever happened that the Worcester Police Department and the Worcester County DA's office have had cases overturned, convictions overturned? Has that happened?
Oh, I'm sure.
So anybody who knows Massachusetts, criminal law in any way, shape, or form would know that. How often does wrongful convictions pop up in this state?
Oh, I mean, so more. So this is.
Did you guys all see that fat pitch I just threw in right there? You want to watch it?
Well, it's nuanced though. It's nuanced though. So yeah, we probably do have more overturned convictions in a lot of places, but that is because of things like the Supreme Court doing this years-long study on witness reliability, for example, that led to a whole bunch of science and a new way that they apply. So I think that's nuanced, but we do have a lot of convictions overturned. And just to point out, I just want to go back to Nat for 1 second. So Nat still hasn't get paid out. This city manager, because he has no sense of justice, as it appears, is still jerking around Nat on getting paid out.
Are they still appealing it, or are they just refusing to pay?
they removed immunity from the police officers because it was a core civil rights violation.
Oh yeah, that's right. To make them the
And
cops.
so that allowed the city to get out. But of course, he was awarded $8 million, 16 years. That's typical. And he's never going to get that out of these cops, right?
They don't have $8 million.
They don't have $8 million. Right. And so the city manager and whoever's advising him on this has now jerked around for a few years. So just another example of what a quality human being our city manager is. But
real quick, so they took immunity away from the officers, but did the city admit any wrongdoing?
Oh no, they got themselves removed from the case, and they've actually that appeal was heard a couple months ago, and the city won that appeal, so they are not a part of the case. But I just point out that in the city of Lowell, I think it was 22, and I reported on this because it was relevant to that case. I wouldn't usually do something in Lowell, but in the city of Lowell, a man was released after 32 years in prison. And it was shown that the science that was used at the time to convict him was has now become bunk, and that bad witness testimony, whatever. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but it wasn't. If I remember correctly, it wasn't like any implicit police wrongdoing, and yet the city of Lowell settled almost immediately with him for a record settlement of a wrongful conviction case. So that's the difference between the ethics of the people in Lowell, at least related to wrongful convictions, and the ethical position of this city government, which is non-existent. There's nothing ethical about it.
So I mean, my whole thing is, I know I've been being a little sarcastic here. The whole thing is that we have examples of cases where it turns out that officers did the wrong thing, and there's no reasonable way to view those cases if you're being reasonable, that you can say anything other than that. And that's not a blanket statement about all officers. We're talking about specific officers. But the city manager made a blanket statement with his release saying that he believes in discipline and holding officers accountable. But we have examples of officers who we have video evidence that wasn't produced. It was, these are from street sidewalk cameras and building cameras and sometimes body camera footage. This isn't something that someone shot with a cell phone that they manipulated or anything like that. We're talking about cameras footage that was discovered accidentally in many of these cases. And the city man and those officers are still on the force. Now, I'm not asking for everybody to be fired. I'm not saying that. However, if they've never even served a day of being at home without pay, how can you say that there's any discipline? If I was that officer, I got away with whatever I got away with. I don't have any.
Well, just if you filed a complaint and signed a police report against an officer they could prove it was false, do you think you would not be charged?
Oh, I know it would be in a second. If I say so, I mean, I can tell you this right now. When I wrote the drone story, I was threatened by multiple officers who said they were going to investigate me and they were going to look into me and they were going to do everything they could. I just happened to be not afraid. And I also don't really do anything wrong at this point in my life, so it would be really hard to do that. I'm sure they could get me for some traffic violation, but unless they planted evidence on me, it would be really hard to get me, right? Although there is some incidents. So if I get arrested in the next couple of weeks, you'll know why. And it's crazy to say that, but that's probably something that it could be in the off. Like maybe we should take this guy down, or just a thought, guys. You could take down the dirty cops that you're hiding inside of your organization. How about that? Let's just get rid of that group of guys and girls. But how about the dude who was putting his junk on a female officer's shoulder on a regular basis? Is that normal behavior? Is that like an investigatory technique, Tom? That was squashed by the supervisor. And by the way, the lady officer in question has zero other reports of sexual harassment, because that's often like a tactic against women. It's like, well, she always says that, and she says that about every guy. In this case, she's never said it about anybody ever in her career, and she had to go to an outside attorney, and she fears for her job because of even talking about this in any way, shape, or form. I have sources in the police department, and there's multiple female officers that said this dude does that on a regular basis. He still works in the police department. So that's who you're protecting, and you know this. So when you go on your public crusade in the public, you know who we're talking about. It's not a made up thing. You're protecting the worst and then at the same time getting upset when the best are tainted by the worst.
Mhm.
That's you can't have it both ways. And this is not over. I hope, and I see a lot of folks listening. I'm getting a bunch of text messages this whole show. This is the beginning. Guys, this is a summary report. This is not the full investigation. So there were, I believe, patterns and practices investigations go into what's a 90-day queue from the initial summary report, and then they're required to be released with all the documentation to the municipality and to the public. So this will become public record. By the way, it doesn't matter if there was some conspiracy that the Trump team was going to squash it. It doesn't matter because it's not released by the Department of Justice. It's sent to a judge that was overseeing it, and that judge has a responsibility to release it in a certain period of time. I understand that they already did the redaction work, which is why they were ready to release it earlier this year. Redaction meaning they covered up the names of the people that were given the anonymous report. So they already did that work, and so it looks like this eventually the full investigation will be released. What are you going to say then?
And
What are you
true. And I just want to reiterate though that like anyone like so if you start finding out data, you start figuring out these cases, really anyone that unmasks a potential victim of sexual assault who went to their government, the federal government, and tried to give information to them because in the context of they could remain anonymous, and anyone that unmasks them is a total piece of human garbage. They're talking about potentially, an alleged victim of sexual assault. And I'm telling you right now, this past week, those people are scared and being re-traumatized by this grinding wheel of we're coming to get you.
Yeah, I understand that several people have gone into hiding, and have credible claims enough so that the funds necessary is being covered, which is not easy to do in today's society. By the way, women's shelters, which are often anonymous places, I guess I could tell a little bit about myself. My mom had to go into several shelters growing up. It's usually a secret system. When you're a kid, in this case, I was a really young boy, and my mom had to bring me to several of these shelters to avoid some abusive situations. It costs a lot of money to take care of those women. So those things are difficult. Those systems are intentionally made difficult, and so if those shelters are finding that these women's stories are credible enough that they have to take them into hiding, that tells you that there's already this pressure campaign to find these women. And that's what doesn't make sense to me, Chief Saucier. Why wouldn't there be a campaign to find out the perpetrators? Not the women. Like, find out if it's true. Go after
that. You're actually searching for these people.
They're searching
is so reprehensible and really gang-like. I mean, I avoid using this analogy, but this is gang-like behavior. This is like an episode of The Sopranos where they're trying to figure out how they can get to a juror. It's reprehensible, disgusting, organized crime behavior.
I mean, it's so let me tell you this. Like, it's weird, right? Because we're in Worcester. We shouldn't be in like an episode of Law and Order, but and you don't know this, so this is great to have you react live. I have some documentation of some of these claims from my sources, letters, emails, text messages, stuff like that. I printed them out. I put them into an envelope. I gave it to a lawyer, and if I get arrested or something happens to me, it goes to Tom, because that's kind of where we're at, right? Because we have to that's where I'm at. It's crazy that I have to say that, but that's like a real thing. And not just Tom, though. I have to make multiple copies. And there's people that are just hearing this live right now that are watching the show. I went to the lawyer in question, and there's multiple copies with different addresses on it. And if something happens to me, those will get mailed out. That's where we're at, guys. That hey, good job, solid management of the city of Worcester, that You have I'm just a fringe internet reporter, dude. I don't want to pretend I'm anything better than that, but I'm having to hide information just in case, so I can make sure that Tom can run it down in case you guys try to take me out.
I don't drive it on my own plate in that city. Are you
Yeah,
crazy?
yeah. That's really where we're at, guys. Like that's what your police department is being viewed at. You guys are this is how you want to be viewed. And by the way,
And good. Sorry.
no, I just want to say this. Like often it's like one lone reporter, right? There's like one person, and then that person's crazy, and they're a drunk or they're a drug addict or this that like they can paint it, right? You know what I mean? Or they're some bad person. Maybe they'll bring up my past. They have a criminal record or whatever, that kind of stuff, right? In this case, it's not one person. The best reporter in the city, who normally would be an ally for the city, is reporting this stuff at the Telegram and Gazette, right? The best police reporter we know, Brad Petroshan. It's in the Patch. It's in Mass Live. It's nationally. It's in the New York Times. It's in and by the way, if you don't like the New York Times, I get it. There's some things about them, but it's everywhere. This is not a little teeny like a little story. It's everywhere, folks, and everybody's talking about it. The chief of police admitted it. His officers are going home and they're complaining to him. I have to tell my wife this and that and the other thing, because everybody's talking about it. And the reason everybody's talking about it is because it's credible. It's credible. It's not incredible. It's credible, because we all live here. We all know how you act. We all know how you act.
And that's like, again, that's not everybody, but the
No,
point of the report, though, is that this stuff is happening because you can't detect it because you have structures that are broken.
well,
And
no,
instead of
intentionally not detecting it.
well, whatever. And I realize that's two very different things, but I mean, the point is, why are we talking about these cases that are in the report? Who are you defending? Nobody's being accused of anything. You're defending like the entity of the police department. Like, what is this? Like team bravado? Nobody's being accused of anything. Nobody's going to lose their freedom. Nobody's even going to lose their job because, well, that doesn't happen at the Worcester Police Department. So I don't know what we're so upset about. Why don't we just fix the problem? But we actually don't want that, and that's incentivized from the top, because if we learned anything about the chief sergeant situation, when did the city take action about that? It is when the public found out. So what we should be learning here is that the city we live in, the appointed leader of our city doesn't care at all what's might be happening to you. What they care about is other people knowing about it, and that's horrifying.
Real quick, the union leaders in their statement said that this investigation and the resulting reporting that has come out of it could undermine the work that has happened under Chief Saucier to reconnect with the community. Right? That's one of their complaints. Like, hey, you're going to undermine our work that we've done with the community. But the thing is, that work done with the community was undermined to begin with if you have officers in your ranks who have these issues behind them and you're not doing anything about it. Why are you moving them off the beat? Why are you paying out these payments? Is every jury that's found against you? Are they all? Is it a massive conspiracy? Like everything, I have a lot of conspiracy theory friends, and they always want to go to the nth degree. Is it the drones in New Jersey? Are they manipulating the stories happening in Worcester? Like, what's going on, folks? Like, is that no? You have a culture that caused Steve Sargent to resign out of nowhere, and then Paul Saucier, and we got lucky to have a guy who apparently is reform-minded. According to this report, the DOJ office says he's reform-minded, and they've already started to do some of the work that it recommends. That's great. But at the same time, those same things that you're talking about, they didn't just come out of nowhere. They came from a culture, an institutional culture. Again, some of the female officers I've talked to this week said that they are afraid for their jobs and afraid of physical retaliation by male peers. That's a cultural issue that you have. And I know now, me saying that, right, by the way, Chief Saucier, if he watches this, some of the deputy chiefs, if they watch this, they know the female officers that I know. And these are not like someone who just jumped on the force. I've known these folks for years. We went to high school together. We went to this together. We went to college together. I know this one. I dated one of them. These are not
Don't
people.
say too much.
What I'm saying is that these folks are not saying these things out of nowhere. This is something that we've seen reported for years and years and years. So if we're going to take the culture of female officers feeling uncomfortable, feeling a persecution, feeling fear, and we're going to say that it doesn't also happen to women on the street who interact with officers on a regular basis, if they're willing to do it to their own peers, why should I believe you, preponderance of the evidence, that you won't do it over here? This expectation that I should assume the police is good is horrible when there's evidence to say that you're bad. So the only way that this seems to work right now is that we have to shame you, we have to expose you, we have to bring evidence, and then eventually maybe somebody somewhere will change. But I'm telling you, this is going to get worse before it gets better.
Yes,
This is going to get way, way worse. There's more coming, guys, because thank God for the brave women who have been subject to these abuses. This report at least gives a little light to them to maybe come forward and to talk about their stories. And good for them. And we should protect them, and we should be there for them. Everybody who's watching on Tuesday at City Hall, I'm looking forward to the testimony of some of these folks that have experienced this. And I hope that the city council takes it serious. I hope they do something symbolic. They won't, but I hope they do. I hope that they hear us, but I know they won't. So the only thing I can do is shame them.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what I have to do now, is just shame you in public. Every single time I see you, say you support rapists and racists. Is that how you want me to talk to you now? Do I have to like have Manny with the camera follow me around, and every time I see a city councilor say on city council, you like rapists and you like racists? And do I have to go get a sign, Tom, and plug it in there in front of their house and say this house likes rapists and racists? Is that what they want? Because that seems to be the only way that they pay attention, is you have to bully them back. You know what? Very much so. They're responding like a bully who got punched in the mouth for the first time.
Yep. Absolutely. And I this is the last thing I have is, I understand that, I understand the perspective that, like, oh, you feel like this is the phrase they keep using is a black cloud on the police department. Listen, that black cloud's been there for 20 years. And and I understand you don't see it that way. You don't believe it. None of that, and I get it. Like, I do get it, where you're coming from, but understand, like, for most people, or not, I don't want to say most people, but a lot of people in the community, not just, I don't know, whoever you think it is, but, people that have been concerned about this for a very long time, people that have lived here, have been an adult for 20 years and lived through all of this, this period of, which a lot of people think that the police department is crazy, basically. But there was some hope that this would be the catalyst and we're finally going to do something. And this response has been absolutely crushing.
Yeah, the worst possible response. It's like they took a wheel and spun it, and there was this one little yellow thing that was like good response, and the rest was like a big red X with skulls through it. And sure enough, they landed on the red X with skulls in it.
And, like,
it's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, that the city manager spent the weekend, plotting with his lawyer, to put out a bunch of disinformation, and then on Monday, when this report comes out, is nowhere to be found the whole day.
Yep. And then releases a statement that he's going to release a statement in a couple of days, and it's
stunning.
It's mind-boggling. And hey, there's a person who I miss, Bill Gardner, a police officer, again, who while he was a police officer, was pointing out, hey, this stuff is happening on a regular basis. Bill happens to be black, and he was being targeted as an officer for being black, but not just because of that, because sometimes he said to his partner, hey, like, don't beat the crap out of this guy. There was a particular incident that Bill recalled at a public event that I was at with Tom, and he's talked about the fact that he was standing talking with a young man who was going through some stuff, and the young man was starting to calm down, and then his partner came out of nowhere over his shoulder, punched the young man in the face, cuffed him, and then when Bill said, "Hey, I was working through it," that began problems for Bill. This is a pattern. This is a cycle. This is a normal thing. Now, Bill has been painted in the media, but as like a bad guy by the police department on these Facebook pages where it's just vile nonsense. By the way, guys, I can see all your posts, so good job. Make sure you take good pictures of me and Tom when you post about us. You know what I mean? You guys are ridiculous.
Yeah, and keep doing it in private because you're brave.
And by the way, one of your heroes over there at Red Metro, he's not from Worcester. Just so you guys know, right? He's not from Worcester. Your boy.
I don't even.
Red Metro.
That is already too much time to dedicate to that person.
What a dink, that guy. You support that dude. You let that dude post on your post, but you're not gonna go find out the dirty cops. That guy that's your hero. That dude. Come on, man. Come on.
No, don't even. That was way too much time to dedicate to that individual on this podcast.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Yeah, he gets no from John.
Yeah, I mean, irrelevant people. We put on the news, and irrelevant people don't make it. So yeah, I mean, I would just in all seriousness, officers of the Worcester Police Department that are doing the right things. I'm not after you, brother. I thank you, but there are systemic issues. There are systems that are broken inside the police department. It would appear. I mean, so like let's fix those and stop, intimidating people that are potentially victims of sexual assault, because it's really disgusting, really. Like, those are the people that we should be primarily worried about, not the reputation of the police department, which is already bad. I hate to break it to you. So let's fix it, and then the reputation will improve, because I don't know how this is going to help anything but make it all. I mean, the city manager is responsible for this. Don't get me wrong. This PR nightmare, incoherent rollout of, thinking he knows what he's doing. I mean, a guy who could roll out a street redesign without getting somebody killed is going to run a PR campaign against the Department of Justice. And when somebody doesn't know what they can't do, that's really dangerous. So that man's scary. But let's just stop this. All we're doing is bullying potential victims of horrific crimes.
That's right.
And if you unless you think they're all fake, and that's just delusional.
Yeah, because pulling a random sample of cases would result in every single one of them being imagined, right? Murphy's Law, the simplest explanation usually is the correct one, and in this case, the simplest explanation is that you have a problem. You have a group of officers who have operated outside the law for decades, and they need to be reeled in. And if you would like to have a new reputation, that's a generational long process.
Yes, it is.
Not a year-long process, not a 2-year-long process, not a get to Paul Saucier's retirement and you're good to go. No, that is a decades-long process. The city of Baltimore, they had one of these investigations, one of the only ones that led to Occam's razor, that led to indictments, and there's still difficulty between the city of Baltimore's government, the police department in Baltimore, and the people of Baltimore, because of the deep mistrust that was developed over a decade-long period, and so they're still working through that. They're still having meetings, similar to South Africa's meetings after apartheid. These things take a long time. Maybe we need something like that, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, this kind of idea that people come and talk and tell their stories, but you have to admit it when you're wrong. It's one of the greatest things that ever happened to me in my life. I was running around being an idiot, and I had to admit that I was wrong. And when I admitted I was wrong, I was free. I was free of the past and everything that I had done wrong and all the things that happened to me when I was a kid, when I just said, I'm sorry. And when you say you're sorry, man, it's a tremendous and powerful tool. And so, and being genuine, people can see through it, by the way, which is why you're having this public relations disaster. Genuine apologies are things that strike chords, because America is the land of second chances. Look at the guy who got president. That it's like that guy got 100 chances, right? It's like you have to say sorry and mean it before you get a chance.
Well,
Before
just
you,
I mean, I don't think I don't necessarily think that somebody who it didn't carry out these things is responsible to say
no,
sorry, but the leadership of our city instead of flailing like children should just accept responsibility and then declare their own responsibility for fixing it. Declare they're going to fix it, not like yeah, sure. If you want to dig in and find something wrong with a couple cases, like they're not all fake. So why do we want to do that while we intimidate potential victims? Let's just fix the problems. And
yeah,
then
I
you'll
mean,
find these guys on your own. And that you want all this information. I'm sorry. You should have gathered it on your own
yeah,
before November 15th, 2022.
you already have it. They already had it, Tom. They had it. They have it, and they just don't want to admit it. And because it becomes a shame thing, right? It's like, I don't want to admit that I did this thing wrong, and I've like been hiding it for so long. Just admit it. Move forward. Everybody's going to be in a better place, and that's it. And again, it's I feel like, why do we have to keep saying we know that there's some good police officers? Why do I have to say that every time? It's like you
I
want me
don't
to
know. Because you'll be
like
attacked if you do.
they want me to qualify every statement. It's like, not every officer. Well, to be honest with you, the fact is, if you have a rapist in your midst and you knew about it, or at least you had someone tell you about it, and you didn't go to the ends of the earth to investigate that dude and find out whether or not he's a rapist, it is everybody's fault.
I mean, just
You
treat
know,
him like, or at least just treat him like Chris Ayala.
yeah, yeah. Make him a pariah. Make him quit his job or something. Get rid of the dude. Get him out somehow. It's not like you've never fired anybody. People get fired. Like, what's wrong with that? I
But I
mean,
mean,
it's
there's a reason why I believe it is that this city uses last chance agreements more than the rest of the state combined. I believe is the case, and there's a reason because and this is not the union's fault. The union understand the unions are there to represent their members, and
yeah,
they should
sure.
fight like hell for their members. But we should always just realize. I mean, we should also realize that is their interest, right? Is
Yeah.
their members' interest, and that's fine. And that they should be considered. That just shouldn't dominate the whole conversation. But I just
But how do you fight for your members if you're fighting for one member and that one member is doing something so long that it's tainting all the other members? How does that make sense? You shouldn't you
I just
fight the majority?
like I just don't understand this. We want to fight to prove that some of this is wrong. Who gives a shit? Just fix the problem.
Hey, I have no problem with investigating claims and finding out that some of it is wrong. But what if some of it's right?
Well,
What
I mean, again, my problem is that with that is that like if you know what a specific case in the report is, right, or date, time, officer involved, that's the short path to if it says in the report, it's a short path to the complaints that were filed, and now the not only has the potential victim of a crime been unmasked, but it's not even public; it's private, right? And so that's when the bad people amongst you. There's what 500 officers or something, 550 officers. Not all of them are great people, folks.
right.
And, sure, most of them are happy to concede that. But the bad guys are in a position of power to use that power in a very awful way. And we need to kind of try and figure that out and continuing to pretend like there's not a problem and trying to, or I mean, I don't know if it's the intent. I don't want to ascribe intent, but the result of what they're doing is intimidating
Yeah.
potentially victims of sex crimes. And stop it, stop it, stop it.
Yeah, I'm with it. And again, I mean, like I said, I've been getting text messages and threats. Like, and again, I'm not afraid of you guys. So you should have known that by now. I don't care. But like, why is that the response? Why, like, the officers that do that? It happened the same time with the drone story. Why is that the response? And then why afterwards, when it turned out everything I said was right, did you not, like, hey, you know what, man, maybe I shouldn't have done. No, no, now you're doubling down on this one. This was way worse. This is way worse than the drone story. Way worse. So why would you? Why? Just let it. It's gonna come out. All of it's coming, and Tom and I are just one little small little cog in this machine. Every eye that can be turned on you has been turned on you, and you're in trouble. The police chief said there was officers responding to something, to a car accident, incident, traffic accident, and the woman that was involved told the officer he should be ashamed of himself. That's what's happening already, guys.
And
So
look, if the that officer that could told that could be the greatest guy in the world, but this
sure,
is a result of a very long time of not being willing to deal with these issues. And
take
that again, I ascribe that to the top. I mean, we've been had seen clear examples of they're not interested in what bad things might be happening to people.
or
They're interested in the PR of it, which is
yeah,
there. So the people should understand that live in our city that of course, not all these people are bad people, but some of them are, and there hasn't been a lot of political will to deal with it. And so, take note that the leadership of your city kind of doesn't care about you at all, and act accordingly. Be careful.
yeah, be careful. And also that to the lawyer that was involved and the people reporting the story about a rushed report, and that we were able to find that out in a week. That
Yep.
was a complete and utter lie, and it came like a rush off the mountain. I was given phone calls and all that stuff. If you think that the other stuff is not going to come after that, you're crazy. I mean, like, you're
Hmm.
really seriously crazy. So listen, if you're involved, get a lawyer. Get a lawyer, man. Get a lawyer.
Yeah,
Lawyer
and I
yourself
mean,
up and start.
uh,
Be ready because the indictments are
if,
coming.
if you want to, if you want to, and if you want to come for us, either one of us, and prove exactly what you're saying, that you want to act like gangsters, I'm happy to write that story too,
That would be great.
because I will continue to tell the people of the city the truth.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done. But and let me say this real quick. I want to say one. I know we're way over
Yeah,
time.
good, good.
The thing about this is that Massachusetts is still a Democratic state, right? Like, overly thing. So whatever you say about Trump and all this other stuff, if you think that it's that reason or whatnot, it's going to take a little bit of time for him to settle things out in Washington. So there's plenty of time for the state apparatus that has to take place to take place. So if that's what you're depending on, is that there's going to be some save from some future person that's going to squash this,
No.
I think you got another thing coming.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it's out. It's done. Their investigation is done. Why? There's no reason. All
so
right,
we
and lastly, Post is absolutely useless, and they're not going to do anything.
yeah, that's true. They won't do anything. Hey,
So
we get any? Do we have a favorite thing this week, or did we run too far over? Is that, or do we
no,
not?
do it quickly.
Okay. So no, not quickly. I mean, we still got hundreds of people watching right now, Tom. You know what I mean? On all these different platforms, and they tuned in. They stayed with us for 2 hours to hear the best part of the show. And the best part of the show is when I asked Tom about his favorite things. Now, I forced Tom at a dagger point to do 2 weeks of Christmas, and so I'm not going to make him do Christmas anymore. I'm not. But it is wintertime. Wintertime. So, Tom, what is your favorite outdoor winter activity?
What's outdoors?
Ice skating, hiking in the snow,
Oh,
making a
like when you go
snowman.
outside?
Yeah.
Oh,
But you
yeah,
never
I don't
do.
do that. I don't do that.
When you do, what do you like to do?
Outdoor winter activity, not dying on ice. Like, I don't know. I mean, I earn my living by putting things on the internet, and so I chain myself to my chair often. Yeah, I'm not really. I'll do. I mean, I should say I will do. I have done in my life. Summer stuff, but I was never like, besides like sledding as a kid and stuff, I never got into snowboarding and skiing or any of that. So I'm gonna be a dud on this one because I'm fat and old.
That's okay. So I mean, I'm also old. We're in the same age range, but I'm a big fan of. I like to shovel. I do like to shovel. I think it's one of the best exercises ever, and so I enjoy shoveling. And so, if you want to call me over, I can help you. I can help you shovel the snow. And then
Facts, Johnny. Facts.
I like the snowball fights, right? And then I'm making the snowmen. I do like the snow. I like the seasons that we have, all the different seasons. So, but I really do like going and seeing when people put the different lights up, right? Regardless of what they're doing for. But I like the creativity of the last few years of the different stuff. I don't know if you saw the one on the internet of the dude that did the chicken, the wake up song. It's like all the chickens clucking. It's like 6 in the morning, and his house lights up and all that stuff. I
Oh,
love that
Jesus.
kind of stuff. So I like those kind of things. Edaville Railroad was a big hit when I was a kid. If anybody remembers Edaville Railroad, down South Shore. Maria's. I just signed myself up for a driveway. Yeah, so yeah, I like to shovel. I do. I do enjoy that. I like that. It's my favorite exercise. Probably is to shovel. I like it.
All right. Well, this is a long one.
It
So much for getting back to our 1 hour time limit.
We were breaking news, Tom, and then that analyzing the breaking news. Pretty good.
Fair enough. So thank you all for watching, who commented. We will attempt, although I think we did all right this week, we will still attempt to screw it up less next week.
Go to city council on Tuesday and go to the meeting on Wednesday. Go check out the Department of Justice. Go in and invest in your city. Going to these things is a good investment. So get out there. We'll see you out there.
All right. Everybody have a good week. We will be back